So, hello, everyone. Good evening in North America and whatever time the rest of you find yourselves at. I have this is Will Taylor, and I have the really distinct pleasure tonight to introduce my colleague and teacher, Farrokh Master, who is. I can't offer enough superlatives, and I'm sure he's blushing over there in Bombay at the moment as I speak. But I always like to tell people I learn more from Farrokh while riding on the back of a motorbike on Alanasos, Greece, on one visit than I have from any of my other teachers of all time. So, without too much more, I'd like to introduce Farrokh and get started. Actually, before I start, I'll talk more about it at the end. But one of the reasons that I've called you here tonight is I want to promote an event that Farrokh is presenting in the fall. This is Himalayan retreat in just outside of Dharamshala, northern India, in September and October of 2013. And I'll give you the information of it toward the end. But as you listen to Farrokh tonight, think of listening to this while sitting in the foothills of the Himalayas, and imagine what that conference could be like. So I'll let you go. And Farrokh, thank you for joining us tonight.
So today I think my topic for discussion is Rhus Toxicodendron, and my clinical experience with this remedy. It's a very commonly used remedy in our homeopathic practice. But what I intend to present today is some of my very personal experiences in clinical cases. Based on that, I have evolved a little new dimension of Rhus Toxicodendron, which I would like to project to you. So, as you all know, this remedy belongs to Anacardiaceae family. The most important thing that I have seen in Rhus Toxicodendron cases is that they are very, very mild and timid person. This part of the remedy I never knew till I saw some of the worst cases of systemic lupus erythematosus, SLA B27 positive cases of ankylosing spondylosis. My impression for Rhus Tox was that they are very anxious patient, nervous patient, restless patient. But I never knew this part of the timidity. And the timidity is so strong that they cannot speak much about themselves. And everything is being suppressed and suppressed and suppressed. And ultimately, this suppression of emotion, affects the collagen tissues of the body, like ligaments, muscles, cartilages, and all those things. The reflection of this kind of timidity you will see in the provings, which are being done by Dr. Henneman in his Materia Medica Pura, where one of the prover was cursing during the sleep. See, he's not cursing in his conscious state, but rather he prefers to curse somebody about his anger, about his resentment, only during the sleep. Another thing that I could see in the proving were that when some of the provers were experiencing a sort of a murmuring and a muttering kind of a delirium, if you see those that particular paragraph in Pura, you will see that the delirium, the word Henneman has written is mild. Now, there is also a degree of mildness in the delirium. For me, delirium is something which is very violent, which is very strong, But here you will see that the delirium of Rhus Tox is very mild, like stramonium and like baptisia. I think so. These are some of the other remedies mentioned in the repertory. And the delirium of Rhus Tox is very quiet delirium. So if you see even the rubric quiet delirium, the other remedy being bryonia, and I think so it should be hyoscyamus, where the delirium also is very mild. So here you will see that this kind of timidity and mildness runs very strongly through the remedy. This only came to my understanding when I was, as I said earlier, treating a case where I had taken such rubrics, that timidity in a very strong way. And when I was expecting on my analysis that drugs like calcarea and baryta or silicia should come up on the top, one day I found out that Rhus comes fourth or the fifth remedy in my analysis. And that's how it stimulated me to study this particular remedy. Many times Rhus does not express his timidity directly, but indirectly it shows in the form of alcoholism. Rhus patients are known to, give support to that timidity by consuming alcohol, which gives them a sense of a little strength in their confidence level, and they can turn to be a strong alcoholic like naxomica, sulfur, or sulfuric acid. Another important aspect that I have seen about Rhus is the family. I think so. This aspect was also quite unknown to me for many years of my life. That Rhus is one remedy which has a very strong bonding with the family. And this kind of bonding is so strong that anything happens to the family, their anxiety level goes very strong. And it could be a very simple household matter, like a child not getting admission in the school, or child being not prepared for the exams, or some minor domestic calamity is there, and the Rhus patient starts panicking, or the health of the loved one is affected. So this kind of small anxiety regarding household matter affects the Rhus very strongly, or something is wrong in the personal life of a family member, even that affects the Rhus patient very strongly. So according to me, Rhus becomes a very strong or an important remedy for family feelings. We never had this rubric in our repertory so far, family feeling strong. But I think so some 10 years back, I collected my experience and I created a new rubric in the synthesis repertory, Love for Family, where I have included Rhus as one of the important remedy. I think so I have given 2 marks to that remedy. So this is another aspect which I could see. Now, with your permission, if I can show you some PowerPoints to the students, is it possible, Will?
Yes. Everything shown on your screen, we will see.
Okay. Okay. So then this is the first slide which I would like to show, that I had some cases, as most of them were female, I think so 3 were female and 1 was male. Now from those analysis of those cases, all of these patients had a very severe pathology. One lady for sure had a very bad ulcerative colitis and was on immunosuppressions. The common feeling that I generated from those cases was that all these patients were the victim of emotional injury. Now, this kind of emotional injury was not an ordinary emotional injury, but an injury by a very strong, dominating person who is trying to rule their life, who is trying to suppress them, and who is giving a lot of violence to them. And this kind of behavior induces a very strong fear. As you know that Rhus is one of the important remedy from ailments from fright, but there is a strong fear factor against the violence by the patient, and the patient constantly feels that something is going to happen, something bad is going to happen, something severe, something dangerous is going to happen. And this kind of feeling usually comes when they are alone in the evening, in the night. They feel that their life is going to be threatened, and then they don't trust anybody. So that brings the superstitious angle. They will do every possible means to protect themselves. They will become restless. They will become helpless. So this is the one aspect of the PowerPoint which I want to tell you. The second aspect, that this particular situation of violence and the behavior by a dominating strong person usually comes from family and friends. It usually doesn't come from the outside world. So it could be the husband, it could be the elder brother, or it could be a strong friend, in the company, in school or colleges. And why do I say this? Because if you look at the mental symptoms, when you do extraction of Rhus tox, you will see most of the mental symptoms are better in open air. So based on this analysis that many symptoms related to the mind are better in open air, I developed the feeling that the threat usually is from within the house and not outside the house. And then supported by my 4 cases that I just mentioned to you about, all the 4 patients had a problem from a member of the family with whom they were emotionally dependent. Only one person had a problem with his friend. So this kind of situation is also characteristic of Rhus tox. Then, if you see the next slide, in most of the threats, Rhus tox always feels forsaken by others. Now, this is very, very important. Rhus tox, like leptodactylus, has a feeling that they have lost the affection of the friend, or they have been forsaken or deserted by the friend. Leptodactylus harassati is another remedy which has the same feeling. Later on I will explain to you. Or aurum metallicum, thuja, pura brasiliensis, all these remedies, have this feeling that they have been deserted by their friend or they have lost affection by their friend. Because in reality, friends are very, very important aspect in the life of Rhus tox person. And unfortunately, they make that kind of friend who try to suppress them, who try to dominate over them, because as I mentioned to in the earlier slide, that Rhus tox patients are basically very mild and timid people. So that's the reason why they get suppressed. They allow violence upon themselves. And when they are emotionally dependent on them, they have this kind of feeling that they are being forsaken by others. They do not try to cling for support like arsenic, stramonium or pulsatilla, but they try to stay quiet and suffer internally. So this is the main difference. Rhus tox at the level of physical part is very restless, but at the level of the emotional trauma, he is not restless. He is rather quiet and suffers internally. And then as the night approaches, all these feelings becomes very stronger. So some examples could be young children whose parents are violent, or a young woman whose husband is alcoholic and consumes some drugs like cocaine or opium. Or then to face the situation, the Rhus tox individual usually becomes very tense, nervous, vigilant, sad, or weeps. In fact, there is a rubric in repertory, if I remember, weeps without any cause. I think so. Rhus tox is a very important remedy for that. Again, the same thing. Even though the rubric says weeps without any cause, that means the cause existing at that particular time. But in reality, why Rhus tox basically weeps is that he is constantly trying to be nervous and tense that something bad is going to happen, and it will really happen. That's why many times Rhus tox patients, they pray to God to receive a divine help. Exactly how CPR patient prays fervently. If you see the rubric, prays fervently, you will see the remedy sepia. Similarly, even Rhus tries to praise to the God to receive a divine help. So if you look under the rubric prayers or praying, you will see Rhus very clearly. They are very, very God-fearing person. On the extreme other hand, Rhus can be friend, mildly, as I mentioned, and helpful. They are very, very helpful people, but at the same time quite superstitious. So that's the main reason when you see a Rhus patient in your practice, he is going to ask you all the stupidest question related to his disease because he is loaded with whims and fancies. Because if you suggest him some diet, he say, no, I cannot eat this diet because if I eat yogurt, it will increase my rheumatism. Or if I eat something sour grapes, it will increase my arthritis. Or if I eat a little oil, in my food, I'll put on weight. So they are always loaded with the whims and fancies, and they are quite superstitious in their food habits, in their dietary habits, in their day-to-day living. So this is very important aspect to how you identify a Rhus in your clinical setting. Superstitious is not always that you are superstitious about a cat walking in front of you or a black cat walking in front of you, not those kind of superstitious. What I'm trying to mean over here is the superstitious on a day-to-day level in the routine life of an individual. Rhus patients are extremely superstitious. Then comes a very important aspect, and that is the feeling of hatred, or a feeling of anger because I have been a victim. And this victimization is from the past, from the childhood experiences or bad experiences when you were in your adolescence. This is the time when you are either abused physically, sexually, or psychologically. This part of the situation is shared by many remedies. Rhus is not the only one. Folliculinum has this kind of situation. Carcinosin has got this type of situation. Many snake remedies have this kind of situation. But Rhus is also very important. Now let us understand some of the other aspects of Rhus. All this kind of abuse or all this kind of emotional trauma is usually suppressed and it doesn't come out. It brings a sense of helplessness or a powerlessness, and a sense of humiliation builds up in the body, which is very, very deep-seated. And it's a sort of a dirty feeling, the way you have a dirty feeling in leg caninum. Rhus similarly has this kind of a feeling because they were abused or because they were tortured, and it remains deep within their mind. And this is the main reason why the hardening and the hatred and the hardening takes place in the heart, and then the hardening and stiffness comes at the level of the joints and bones and cartilages. So this is a very good Jungian psychological thing which you can see, that there's a lot of stiffness, there is a lot of hardening of the tissues. Similarly, at the level of the mind also, you will see that there is a lot of hardening. So this is another slide which I wanted to discuss. And then sometimes when they are provoked, suddenly a lot of anger can come out of a Rhus patient like a volcano, especially when they are unjustly treated. So Rhus is one of an important remedy for injustice cannot support, like Veratrum album or like sepia or like Stephysagria. And these are the people who cannot usually forgive people. Now here you will see a friend of Rhus also coming from the same family, Rhus glabra. Rhus glabra also has this kind of feeling that people who have done wrong to me, I am not going to forgive them ever in my life. The hatred always remains. The difference is that Natromure keeps on brooding this every few hours. Rhus doesn't brood much like Natromure. Rhus would rather try to suppress it and try to not to look at it. But whenever the person gets a chance to look at it, whenever a similar situation again comes back in their life, this is the time when Rhus patient suffers the most. Cursing and swearing. Now, I told you that day also, sorry, not that day, today morning, that cursing is usually done in the sleep, if you see the rubric. But sometimes it can come in reality also. But this is the time of anger that they can bring out. They are always better in a place away from their home, and that is why they love sports like sepia. They love activities like sepia. So walking, bicycling, motor driving, horse riding, open air, any damn thing in the outside atmosphere is big amelioration for the stocks. So the second point is that even though they love their family, even though they are family oriented, they still love to be outside their house. So this is also a very important thing of stocks, because within the family, many times they receive emotional injury. Now, another very important thing which I mentioned to you few slides before was this state of helplessness and powerlessness. Rhus has this kind of feeling of being locked up, no way out, something like a trapped up situation of Ignatia or a trapped up situation of Naja. Now, this is very common when you are in a relationship, a permanent relationship like a marriage, where there is no way out. Maybe in certain countries, marriages, you can easily take a divorce. But in countries like India or other very, very orthodox-minded society, it's not very easy to take a divorce, especially when you have a child. So in this situation, when you are suffering, and you don't see any hope out, this is also one of the important situations of Rhus where you feel very lonely. You dwell about your whole situation, especially in the night, that I cannot come out of this situation, and I'm not very happy with my present circumstances. This kind of phenomena, which is common to sepia, common to Ignatia, Naja, Natrum, is also a part of Rhus. So this is what I want to explain. And the delusion of being dirty, which I explained to you earlier also, like caninum or like Asteria rubens, where you will, like Thuja, where after a sexual abuse, you get that feeling of being dirty. I think so the rest of the thing is very apparent in the slide of common modalities. But next. Suicidal mania. One of my patients had a very strong desire to commit suicide because he always felt that the life that I have lived was very useless and there was no meaning to my life, and so the easiest way is that I should end my life out. So suicidal thoughts and suicidal situation comes up in Rhus only when they are totally helpless and they feel that I'm quite useless. So this is very important. Now, dreams of violence is understood because the type of life situation that I've just explained to you, I don't think I need to explain to you about the dreams part of the Rhus because it totally matches what I just mentioned to you. So the dreams of blood also is the same thing. The dreams of fire, I think so, is there in Rhus, and that is very important because fire is again heat and anger. So you will see all the remedies which is mentioned under suppressed anger. All of them are represented under dreams of fire. So do this exercise and you will see the same story, that people with suppressed anger usually have dreams of fire, and then Rhus has also got dreams of, I think so, murdered, and dreams which are quite vexatious, So dreams vexatious is a very big rubric, I think so, more than 100 remedies are there, but important remedies being graphitis and asaram. So you will see that same situation matches in the dream also. So I was very happy when I could see my matching of my situation in the repertory, what I saw in the clinical cases that I treated with Rostock successfully. And even the patient improved clinically. They had, as I said earlier, they had a very severe pathology. I could stop immunosuppression in a case of an ulcerative colitis after Rostock's, and this really remedy helped me to treat some good cases. For the reference material, if you really want to read some good Rostocks, then I would suggest, of course, Pura is one such, but expanded work of Nash, I think so, is another very good book I would recommend, because the expanded work of Nash has given some good physical symptoms which are taken from the Pura. Then Nash has written also a book on typhoid fever where he has beautifully described Rostock's, and then regional leaders and testimony of my clinic. All, if you read all those 4 important works of Nash, I think so you'll get a very large understanding of Rostock's. Is it okay? This much is okay,
This
Will?
this is excellent. This is excellent. Do you want me to jump in for a minute?
Please, please, I would love to hear you.
Good. Well, I was raving before about how inspiring the conference was in last year. Just a minute, I'm trying to make myself the presenter here, and I can't seem to do 2 things at once. So let me just focus on changing the screen here. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things that I did is I was listening to you lecture on Rhus Tox, and I found again tonight, every time I listen to you, Farouk, I learn something new. So, but I pulled out the map I had of Rhus Tox and began developing it, because I'm a very visual learner. So taking the material you were talking about and trying to develop this into a story. And so first off, let me just talk about this remedy a little bit. This is the eastern poison ivy of North America, and we use the leaves gathered at sunset just before flowering time. For some reason, we we choose that preparation.
Yeah.
Hahnemann introduced this well-known remedy, 99 proving references of this. And, it's a bit confusing in our literature because we'll find references to Rhus radicans and to Rhus toxicodendron. So what I'd like you to do is look very carefully at those illustrations of these plants and tell me the distinctions between them. And the truth is, this is one plant. Hahnemann published his observations on this remedy initially under the name Rhus radicans, and that name's been changed in the reprinting of his texts since. You'll still find the 2 names persist in our literature, but these are 2 historically appropriate names for the same plant, which is today known as Toxicodendron radicans by the botanists. You'll find some individuals try to draw a distinction between Rhus toxicodendron and Rhus radicans, and yet these are the same plant, eastern poison ivy. In any case, I was, while listening to your lecture in Sidbari in India last fall, I sat down and drafted out this illustration based on your lecture going through. So I'm going to just walk through it real quickly here. And of course, we all know about the itching of this remedy and the serious exudates that result in an edema, and then finally the development of vesicles superficially. Very common expression of this plant, a toxicologic symptom from superficial poisoning from rolling in this plant that I'm familiar with because it grew up where I was a kid. Okay. And the restlessness and continued motion that results, it's an itching that compels you to scratch, you have to move. And in this way, this itching is quite homologous with the anxiety that you talked about of this plant. This itching and anxiety, it's kind of a somatic expression of the anxiety, or vice versa, with anxiety resulting in this restlessness and constant motion, this need to be outside in the open air, not confined, not held down in a place. And this is very much the polarity in this remedy, is that there's this on one hand, this stiffness, but on the other hand, this need for continued motion and amelioration from continued motion. Along with the stiffness and restlessness, there's these themes strongly in this remedy of work in bed, very intriguingly, with 184 rubrics referencing the bed, and then these prominent rubrics of desire for occupation and the delusions that he's engaged in some occupation, which we might compare with Brownia. Okay. So, some of the aspects of this remedy, again, that I wasn't so familiar with until clinical experience with it, and until reflected in your lecture on this. First, the weakness that's so strong and runs through this remedy, very, very centrally, this great weakness of the whole body, obliged to lay down, lost all her strength, weakness of every organ system, memory, every part of the body very prominently, which and reflected as well in this lack of vital heat, the inability to produce the heat of the body, very sensitive to cold air that we know well for this remedy, which leaves the individual open to the possibility of injury and this anxiety as if a misfortune would happen, as though they were about to be poisoned. These are proving symptoms from Hahnemann's proving. Injury physically, muscles, fascia, soft parts, but also all this openness to emotional injury, mortification, fright, and grief. The delusion that one is being injured. Okay, and again, something that I'm very familiar to see here in Portland, particularly, we have a lot of individuals who present to the clinic with complaints of multiple environmental sensitivities, multiple food allergies, individuals who can only eat yams and nothing else, and of course sometimes need to differentiate that and identify some of these as real, but some of these are this kind of this terrible fear of being injured by one's close environment, by things close, by family, by your own food on your own plate, by your close environment. Murdered, poisoned, etc. Okay? And again, you mentioned the similarities in many respects to Hyoscyamus, Stramonium, belladonna, with these fears of being injured. The unresolved trauma, it comes out in the provings. Disagreeable thoughts that she cannot free herself from. Fear and despair which she cannot get rid of. This unresolved trauma, very much like we think of for nature muriaticum, with this unresolved trauma that leads out and this reflection back, dwelling on past disagreeable occurrences, especially at night. Okay. So I'm just going to walk through this really quickly, and I'll post these slides for everyone. They'll be on the Whole Health WHN course. I'm sorry, it's on the website we use to support the webinars, the WHNcourses.com site for you. Okay. Walking through the strong forsaken feeling, again on the provings, as if she were all alone and all about her were dead and still, or as if she had been forsaken by a near friend. Okay. The strong sense of forsakenness, lost the affection of her friends, feeling of hopelessness, inconsolable. And this is a piece that I had never really recognized the importance of until listening to your lecture, but this delusions that she is dirty. Again, this internalization of this feeling of forsakenness cannot bear to be looked at. The delusions, everyone is looking at her. And I recall the case that you took for us in Sidbari, of the woman who could, walking through town, was so conscious of people and had the impression that everyone was looking at her and looking down on her, feeling despairing of her social position, that she was dirty, with this internalized forsakenness. So, the way I develop these diagrams, as I've talked about before, I'll take the symptoms of, from the provings or from the repertory, or in this case from your lecture, and divide them up and sort them out into piles and try to represent the remedy visually here. Okay. The superstitiousness is interesting because it seems to be a reflection of the stiffness of thought, the stiffness of thinking, combined with this itching anxiety, kind of this piece. And so there's this superstition, this openness to entertaining ideas that may not be really true, and so opens up to this strong anxiety about something will happen and something will happen in the morning, anxiety on waking in the morning. And I love this little rubric, the delusion that someone calls on waking. Reflect on that a moment. I've actually never had a patient walk into the office and say, "Doc, I had this strange, strong conviction that someone is going to telephone me in the morning, first thing on waking." But think of the feeling of this. It's that you jolted out of that place. As soon as you wake up into the world in the morning, you have this feeling that I'm going to need to respond to something, which maybe is a little bit bigger than I can manage. Very Soric kind of fear here. This feeling that somehow I'll be called upon to respond in some way, and I've just woken up to it. Okay. Let's walk through the anxieties, and again to emphasize this complementarity to Brownia elbow with the strong polarity that they both share with the images of bed and home, okay, on one hand, and work and occupation on the other. And of course, what makes remedies complementary is sharing a great deal in some aspects of their pathogenesis, but having one large area, at least one large area of marked difference. And of course, here it's in the derailing of inflammation at the stage at which fluid is transposed from the intravascular spaces into the interstitial spaces, right? And in Rhus tox, we have way too much of that. So we end up with the edema and the vesicle development, and in Brownia, we have the dryness of this. So quite opposite in the direction of fluid handling, but otherwise pathogenesis, these remedies being so similar in so many respects. So I want to open up for questions in just a moment, but before that, I really want to talk about this. Reflecting on the lecture from Farooq you just had, and thinking of receiving this material in the foothills of the Himalayas, September 28th through October 7th, Gaining Confidence with Pathology. Dr. Master will be presenting in a small town of Sidbari, Himachal Pradesh, northern India, just outside of the town of Dharamshala. And information you can find at this website, HimalayanHomeopathy.com. And for those like me who are not very familiar with India, it's this is up here in the very far north, okay? This is the Tara Center where we stayed last year and will be staying again this year. Beautiful, beautiful facility, sitting here in the foothills of the mountains. Okay. This is my wife Mary, enjoying herself sitting outside our residence, and this is the kind of weather we were dressing for. Very comfortable, lovely weather, and beautiful surroundings, and the blue magpies flitting around in the bushes to her right there, and the green parrots. This is Mr. Nath, Shankar Nath, who was the logistics manager for the trip, and for those of you who might shy away from the daunting task of a visit halfway around the world, Shankar made it really possible. His mother is a physician in the small town of Sidbari. His father was a spiritual master in the town, and Shankar divides his time between this town in India and Vienna, Austria, and seemed to embody both of those worlds beautifully. He managed to integrate us into a very Indian experience, but was able to make everything happen on time. It was actually very hard to find a picture of him without a cell phone, managing the logistics of the trip. But Shankar made it possible for us to arrive safely and easily on time and feel very comfortable and arrange visits to the attractions of the area. It was a delightful experience. This is the nearby Gyutu Monastery, residence of His Holiness the Karmapa, It was about a 15-minute walk from where we stayed. This is on the way there. Okay, this is the kind of countryside we were visiting, living in. This is the nearby town of Dharamshala, where the Tibetan government lives in exile, the Dalai Lama's government. And at the Dalai Lama's palace here. Sparolactus is a homeopathic provider in a nearby town, and graced us with his presence and brought a number of live patients to the conference to share with. And some of the individuals who went stayed on and took some time working in Sparrow's clinic. That's my wife Mary just behind, and I don't know the guy with the cool shades in the back. He just showed up there. This is at the Dalai Lama's palace. That rug is now on the floor in my living room. This is a very good salesman. Everybody came home with way too much stuff. Rugs, shawls, etc. from Dharamshala. Lovely lunch spot just above the village of Dharamshala. We spent a little bit of time hiking in the mountains. We took afternoons off and resumed for late afternoon, evening to finish the seminars. So we had various excursions, and this is hiking up into the mountains above Dharamshala. We were not carrying the hay for the cows. And and of course, I almost forgot. It's about this guy. It's about Farok's teachings, and which it was hard to know what was more exciting, the beautiful environment or the teachings of this incredible man. So again, HimalayanHomeopathy.com. Visit the website, read about it. I'd love to see some of you there. So let's open up for questions that have popped in. And Melissa, help us out here.
All right. Hello. Okay, we have a couple questions, and I'm sure that more will be coming in. Let's see. This one is from Sophie, and she asks if you could please repeat what you had said regarding chemical sensitivities and multiple food allergies.
Certainly. Now, certainly there are individuals with chemical sensitivities and multiple food allergies. And however, if we look at individuals presenting to the clinic with that complaint, I think we can identify that there are some where those concerns go way beyond the pale and may not be readily documentable. Okay, so I think we need to sort out those for whom those are genuine issues. For those for whom those are results of pathologically disturbed thinking. Okay, so the stiffness of which the superficial the superstition is an expression. Okay. Unresolved trauma, the feeling that one is being injured by one's close environment. Remember, for saying it's the family, okay, that the injury is coming from. It's the food on your plate. It's the carpet in your home. It's the things that are close to home that injury is coming from. Okay, the sense that this feeling is unresolved and it drags over time, and the ability to develop superstitious behavior that attributes your sufferings to these injuries that are close to home. And again, I want you to hear that I'm not suggesting that that's true of everyone with multiple chemical sensitivities, but certainly to a certain population of those individuals.
All right.
What are your thoughts on that, Farokh?
You already said everything, whatever the question was. Yeah.
I just repeated what you told me.
In fact, I said everything, whatever I had to say, nothing extra that I can think about. I have never really taken pains to understand Rhus tox more at the physical level because the symptoms are very clear and apparent. But my interest was always to understand the mind part of the Rhus tox, so that I have explained to you in my PowerPoints, whatever I could understand from my cases.
Yeah. Let's do a few more questions. Oh, we've got a lot more time. This is good.
Yeah, we've got a lot more questions coming in as well. So, Okay, this is from Lori. She asks if you could expand a bit on the sensation of feeling dirty in the context of Rhus talks, and what is the basis of this sensation for them?
Okay. The feeling of dirtiness is not always directly expressed by the patient. This is one thing which I would love to explain to you. Sometimes the dirty feeling can come in a person with some delusions, like let's say that a person has got a delusion of a dirty smell coming from the mouth. Now this itself, is very embarrassing to the person, because the person feels that a bad odor is coming out from the mouth, or a bad odor is coming out from the nose, so this kind of odors, or perspiration is bad or offensive, but this is a delusion. This is not a reality. What I want to tell you is, so this is an indirect way of showing and expressing dirtiness within you. Or a person will sometimes verbalize the feeling, that I'm not a very good person. So this also is a sort of his dirtiness, because indirectly when you question and probe more into detail, the person will come back to the original symptom of being abused, or being sexually abused, or being raped, or XYZ, So either it can be expressed very openly, which is rarely done, little indirectly, which is sometimes done, but in majority of the time you will see some aspect in the case taking which relates to a sort of an embarrassment, either through some discharges, or through some odor, or through some illusion or delusion. So that aspect needs to be understood by the homeopath.
I saw this once very clearly in a case. It was a woman who came in, and she complained that she had terrible bad breath, and she wanted me to treat her bad breath. That was the reason for the visit. And I couldn't smell any bad breath. And so I managed to find an excuse to stand up and walk past her chair, and then drop my pencil and bend down so I could smell her breath closely, and it was fine. And I told her, I said, your breath is fine. And she told me that I'm lying. That can't possibly be true. And I asked her how she knew her breath was bad. And she said people grimace when they see her. That when people walk past her or get close to her, they make bad faces and they pull away. And that's why. And there was nothing at all wrong with her breath. And Farouk, you may slap me on the hand here. I took 2 rubrics and I gave her latcaninum, and it didn't act. And I fortunately she did come back to me, and I took the case more fully. And this was a Rhus case, but I think here there was the superstitious element here, her ability to believe this without good evidence. Okay, and this strong feeling of dirty, which feels to me like it's an internalization of that forsaken feeling. It's that feeling of being forsaken and turning it in on oneself. Is that reasonable?
Yeah. See, if you open the chapter on nose, Will, and if you see imaginary odors, you will see a very nice rubric of Rostock's imaginary offensive odor from the tip of the nose. I think so. There are only 2 remedies: borax and Rostock's.
See, I would have given her borax by mistake.
Yeah. So if you read that chapter of imaginary odors, you will see Rostock's well represented, at least 2 marks, in rubrics. So that's the reason why I could derive that there's a lot of dirtiness in indirect way also in Rostock's.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, okay. This is kind of a continuation of, to expand upon this topic about the dirty feeling. With this dirtiness, do you see a mania for hand washing, or a need to keep the house extremely clean, like say in arsenicum, or other remedies that are very fastidious about their hygiene?
Now see here, actually the meaning what I am trying to explain to you is quite different. Here, what you are talking basically is a order, basically an order and degree of not being satisfied with whatever is in front of you. That is actually fastidiousness, or that is desire for order. What I mean basically over here is the dirty from the psychological point of view, that there is something wrong within you. There is some degree of shame within your body for which you feel very bad about. So let's use the word shame. So dirty and shame, delusion dirty and delusion related to shame is one and the same thing. So I think so you should put Rhus tox under that particular frame. And that is why when you see the rubric in the repertory, delusion that he is dirty, you will see remedies like Asteria rubens, Lec caninum, Leptodactys hilaceti, Syphilinum, Thuja. All these remedies have nothing to do much with fastidiousness or order or cleanliness. No. All these remedies have got something to do with the shame aspect in their personal life.
Wonderful, thank you. Dr. Master, a couple of attendees have asked if you might be able to repeat the name of the book that you referenced regarding the chapter that includes delusions of the offensive odor from the self.
The book, it's a synthesis repertory, which I wanted them to refer the chapter of nose, and in the nose there is a sub-rubric smell, and under smell you look under illusion of smell, illusion, and under illusion of smell there are about 70-80 remedies. Rhus tox should be 2 marks, and then if you still see the sub-rubrics of that illusion, one of the sub-rubric is that offensive odor from the nose, especially felt at the tip of the nose. I think so borax and Rhus tox are the remedies. So this is the reference. And, related to the study of Rhus tox, the broad study of Rhus tox, as I said, of course, after Pura, which Dr. Will has very nicely described in his PowerPoints. But the other aspect should be referred from Nash expanded works. There's a book which tells everything about Nash, all the articles, all the materia medica, all the work of Nash, expanded work of Nash. That gives Rhus tox very beautifully.
Mm-hmm. I love that text. It's one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you.
Reference. Yeah.
All right, a few more questions here.
Sure. Yeah.
Within the sphere, okay, great. This is from Karen. Within the sphere of timidity, does Rhus tox feel that they are unentitled to the things that they desire?
I'm not. I think that would be projecting too much on the situation. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that entitlement or not is the issue. I think it's more a suppression of help me out on this. But more a suppression of the energy of the person. There's this weakness. There's a sense that I've been injured. I'm not resolving from it. I kind of have to suffer with this. There's this unresolved feeling of trauma. I can't ask for help from this. More of this kind of feeling. Set me straight, Farouk.
See, I was cut off from the sound for a few seconds, so I didn't hear the question. I only heard the last part of what you were telling. So what was the question? Yeah, I was cut off from the audio.
Can you repeat, Melissa?
Of course. Attendee asked if within that sphere of timidity in the Rhus patient, if the patient feels unentitled to the things that they desire, like they're not deserving of good things.
No. this kind of timidity, what I'm trying to explain over here is that there is some injustice happening, there is something wrong happening, there is some violence happening. And instead of reacting and fighting back bravely, to the situation, Rostox rather tries to internalize, and that act of being internalizing the whole violence, either in the form of a fright or in the form of timidity, that is very characteristic of Rostox. So the fear factor, the anxiety factor, the fright factor, the timidity factor comes up in relation to the violence and domination, and this is very characteristic. Nothing else. Not the type of question that you asked. No, Rostox doesn't behave in that way. Prefers to internalize.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Let's see here. One more question?
Sure.
Yeah.
One more, okay. This might be a bit of a long one, but it's been asked several times if you could potentially differentiate between a Rhus tox and an anacardium, since there's a similarity of a history of abuse and the anger and the kind of mental emotional picture that we see similarly between these two.
So at what level you want us to differentiate? At the level of the mind, or the level of the physical body? Where? At what level?
Let's look at the mind a little bit, I think.
Okay. Let's put it that way. If you want me to differentiate Rostox and anacardium, so please make 2 columns, because I'm a little I would rather give you in a detailed way. So put anacardium on one side, Rostox on another. Most important is that anacardium is a very rough and a harsh person. So write down, anacardium is a very rough and a harsh, abusive person. Not very good to listen to, not very good to make a friend with, And this aspect is very important in anacardium. While Rostox is basically a very mild and a sweet person. Rostox person has got a lot of problems in public places, in crowd, in society. They are not a socialite. Rostox people are not at all a socialite. If you see the rubric ailments from society or ailments from crowd, you will see Rostox as a very important remedy. Then, as I told you, Rostox has got issues with fright. Anacardium does not have any issues related to fright. So this is another important thing. Rostox tries to tackle the timidity with the help of alcohol. Alcohol is never a story of anacardium. Anacardium is very, very egoistic. So anger, contradiction, anger from slightest offense, all this is a story from of anacardium. Then anacardium, because whenever the ego of anacardium is hurt, anacardium goes into a severe anguish. And this state of anguishness makes the person restless. So the person, drives from place to place in the act of being anguished. So this is very important. As far as the fears are concerned of the remedy, I would say that everything related to death, is very strong in Rostox. So fear of death, or fear of death during typhoid, or fear of death during cough, all these things comes very close to Rostox. Whereas anacardium has basically fear of misfortunes. This is a very important fear that I would think. Basically in life, in general, anacardium always feels forsaken, but Rustox basically feels forsaken only from his friends. So that aspect you should know. That Rustox is only a degree of friends, but anacardium is in general, you can say, totally. Rustox is a hurried individual. Especially I have seen Rustox people eat their food very fast. You know, in 10 minutes, everything they gulp down. So this is very important in Rustox. Then I think so another very important part in Rustox and differentiation is the confusion. Confusion related to his identity is very strong phenomena, as you know, in anacardium, you know. And the problems also related to the memory, you know. Loss of memory, especially loss of memory after any neurological illness goes more in favor of anacardium. Rustox doesn't have that kind of pathology. Rustox has only memory problems in a damp weather, but otherwise memory problems are very strong, you know. Weakness of memory for what he has read, what he has written down, what he was about to do, all these problems come up. And anacardium cannot exert their mind much, you know, so if you give them some mental challenge, anacardium will have a lot of problem. But again, as I said, that anacardium people are cruel, harsh, lack of moral feelings goes more in favor of anacardium. Anacardium are very obstinate. This is what I want to tell you. One thing which one of the most obstinate person in homeopathy will be. And then of course, you know the characteristic that they have what is known as the will, which is a contradiction of will and loss of willpower. That's very strong of anacardium. And then if you come to the generalities, you know, eating ameliorates is very characteristic of anacardium. Alcohol, beer, and all those things are brandy, and all those things are very characteristic of Rustox. What I saw in many Rustox patients is desires for oysters and cold milk, which is not there in anacardium. Rustox has got a lot of aggravation from cheese. So this is very important thing for me.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Where's cheese?
Aggravation from cheese in Rustox. And anacardium loves cold food, you know, so eating cold food always ameliorates anacardium person.
You know, I had a
milk and
I had a Rustox patient once who presented with fibromyalgia, and she had saved up her money, and she had bought two things. She'd bought herself a hot tub to put out on the deck to sit in the very hot water, and a small refrigerator to put her cold ice cream in. And so she would sit in her hot tub and eat her cold ice cream. Quite a Rustox case with that coldness, the need for heat, but the cold milk craving for strong. Great.
And one more thing in mind, I forgot that anacardium is a very fastidious remedy. So anacardium is very extremely fastidious, and Rustox is not at all fastidious. Anacardium has to prove himself always, you know. So, and the nervous excitement is very strong in anacardium. the dwells on disagreeable events and part which Dr. Will was talking about is all the stuff of Rhus tox. Anacardium usually never dwells, So that part you can put very well into Rhus tox.
Okay.
I think so. This is a fair differentiation, whatever little I could do for you.
This is amazing, and this is one of the things that that astonishes me about you, Farooq. You did this off. You just whipped this out off the cuff. This is beautiful. So what a lovely piece of comparison and contrast. So good. Well, I think you probably have to get about your day. And,
yes.
And folks probably need to get to their dinners, or on the East Coast, maybe even of the U.S., even get to bed now. So thank you so much for joining us. I will start a little publicly accessible page on the WHNcourses.com site where we host our webinars, and I'll post my my map of Rhus tox for you. And if it's okay, Farooq, may I post that little comparison piece we just did?
Yeah.
Lovely,
please.
lovely. Okay. And I want to thank you so much. I'm so much looking for, I can't believe you'll live halfway around the world, but I'm looking so much to seeing you next fall. And thank you so much for gracing us tonight with your presence.
And Will, can you announce that Wisconsin seminar and Carlsbad seminar also?
Oh, yes. And I don't have the details on that, but
can I talk?
Please do, yes.
I'll be in Chicago in the city of Wisconsin from 14th to 16th of June. And it's there on my
in Beloit,
computer.
Beloit, Wisconsin, down southeast Wisconsin near Chicago. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. And the topics will be acute and chronic disease case management with how to differentiate remedies and understanding of calcareas. And I'll be talking on the mental rubrics, its interpretations. And it is in the city of Beloit, Wisconsin. Beloit is a very small city on the border with Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody can contact the person to be contact over here is Krista dash voicest.com.
Okay.
You can see it on the screen if you want.
Okay, I'll switch to you. I'll switch to you so that folks can see that.
Website.
Just a moment here.
I see on the website. Yeah, can you see?
Okay, you have a little button to push to make yourself active there.
Yeah, Krista Voice. Can you see this?
Probably in just a moment here. Okay, there we go. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's June 14th to 16th.
Okay.
Can you see this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll be in the city of Carlsbad from 20th to 23 June.
That's in
California.
Carlsbad, California, near San Diego.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So there also I'll be talking on practically the same topics, but it will be more of miasms. I'll be discussing over there.
Okay.
And I'll be discussing on level of health, how to analyze the person regarding his health. And if you can see on this, and I'll be also speaking about some deeper understanding of a major polycrest. Trying to bring out the screen. Miss Jane Cranes is the lady who is going to organize. Yeah, but mostly we'll be studying all Hahnemannian studies. We'll study organon, we'll study Hahnemannian philosophy. So people who would love to have a classical Hahnemannian German stuff are invited.
Okay. Well, thank you so
thanks,
much.
Will. Thank
Will.
you
so much. Goodbye,
Thanks
Al.
for giving me time. Yeah, thank you.
It's a
Bye. Take
blessing for
care.
us. Bye bye
Love to
now.
all of you. Thanks to organizers. Bye bye.